If you've spent any time in the anime community, even at a casual level, you've probably heard of the show Ghost Stories. It's a supernatural anime about a bunch of kids running into all kinds of curses and hauntings. There's not much to it of note, and in another world, we probably wouldn't even be talking about it. However, it gained infamy due to its English dub by ADV Films, which, instead of localizing it properly, chose to fill the script with all kinds of edgy jokes, crude humor, and dated references. Ghost Stories has now reached a mimetic level of popularity, mostly due to compilations of its most shocking lines circulating on YouTube. Now, I've known about Ghost Stories for a while now, but it wasn't until recently that I started getting curious about what the original show was like. I'd also always wondered why the dub team decided to localize the show like this. Wikipedia states that the team had the freedom to change the script however they liked, aside from a few core aspects, but was the series really so tepid and so unnoteworthy that they just needed to spice the story up in their own way? I mean, Japanese audiences seem to like it a lot. Sure, Western audiences are different, but not so different that they'd have to make such radical changes, right? Well, I've now watched all 20 episodes of Ghost Stories in both the original Japanese and the infamous English dub, and I gotta say, it may not be the worst show in the world, but it certainly struggles to rise above mediocrity. The show follows main character Satsuki Miyanoshita, who ends up moving back to her late mother's hometown. There, she transfers into the elementary school her mother once attended, where she encounters a malicious ghost named Amano Jaku. Satsuki manages to seal him away using her mother's diary, which contains recollections of her own encounters with the same ghost. But her paranormal woes unfortunately don't end there. The series is entirely episodic, with each new story centered around either Satsuki or one of her friends getting mixed up with some kind of ghost or curse and trying to figure out how to get rid of it before it kills them. Now, I want to be fair. Ghost Stories is a kid's show. It's not meant to be super deep or complex. It's just trying to be a fun little PG horror romp with a little moral here and there. I can't blame it for that. That doesn't really change the fact that watching it was dreadfully boring, and every story was painfully predictable. So many episodes involved the kids running around, helplessly trying not to get killed for 20 minutes, only to get miraculously saved near the end, either by Deus Ex Machina or sheer dumb luck. I'm not saying the show has no merits at all. It does try on some serious topics at times, though never for too long. But I'll be honest, if I wasn't putting this video together, I would not have bothered to watch this show to completion. At the same time, I was also comparing the original script to the English dub. The first few episodes were actually surprisingly faithful. There were a couple of wild swings, like Momoko being turned into a hardcore born-again Christian, but in general the overall script was largely untouched, aside from a few lines made crasser and edgier. As time went on though, they did get a lot bolder, and the jokes started to really toe the line. By the end of it, I'd say calling the dub even 50% faithful would be sort of pushing it. I think your mileage is gonna vary on this, but I personally found the Ghost Stories dub to be much less funnier when watching it in the context of the actual show. You really are getting the best hits in those compilations. Everything else is just a bunch of ad-lib riffs that try to be as edgy and offensive as possible, or tedious running jokes that would only be funny to middle schoolers at best. Speaking of ad-libbing, I really got a feeling somewhere around the latter half of the show that the dubbing team's changes felt less like they were trying to spice up the dialogue and more like they just didn't really care about what was going into the script and just wanted to fill up the space.
Leo! 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 God damn it! God damn it! God damn it! God damn it!
There's even points where they kind of start mispronouncing the characters' names, such as Satsuki's last name Miyanoshita being pronounced as Manshita in the dub for some reason. Now let me be clear. Ghost Stories is not a hidden gem. It's a run-of-the-mill kids anime that, if dubbed normally, would probably be the sort of series that would be quickly consigned to the bargain bin. And its only viewers would be kids whose only access to anime would be the ones they could borrow from the library. A series enjoyable in the moment, but ultimately forgettable and not really that remarkable. For all the faults of the English dub, there's no denying that it gave the series more staying power than it ever had any right to. Even so, I feel like this treatment is a little unfair. It's important to remember that the Ghost Stories dub isn't just a joke dub, it's the official dub for the show. There was actually another English dub for Ghost Stories done by Animax, but they apparently only released the dub in Asian regions, and you can barely find any mention of it on the internet. If you're a fan of Ghost Stories, as hard as that is for me to imagine, and you've always wanted a properly done English dub of the show, I can't imagine you're too happy with the current state of affairs. Yes, ADV Films was given carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, and considering what they did blew the series up, you can't say they made a mistake either. But it still rubs me the wrong way, and I can't help but feel a lot of ill will towards the series and their approach. I know that some people watching this will say that it's not really a big deal, and to just think of the Ghost Stories dub as like an abridged project, like the ones that got super popular on the internet way back when. I do agree that it's not a big deal in the long run, but I don't like comparing the Ghost Stories dub to abridged series projects. The most successful of these, like Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series and Dragon Ball Z Abridged, certainly took huge liberties with the story, but behind the lampooning, there was always love and affection for the franchise in question. Lil Karibo had love for Yu-Gi-Oh! Team 4-Star had love for Dragon Ball. I don't believe the dub team at ADV Films had all that much love for Ghost Stories, and even if they told me otherwise to my face, I'd still have a hard time trusting that. It's just a very mean project in my eyes, and I think you don't really see that unless you watch the English dub alongside the original Japanese, like I did. The original show, as trite and predictable as it was, still tried to have these heartfelt moments, which I do appreciate. The English dub, however, spits on such moments with such cynicism and vitriol that it even makes a jaded adult like me squirm uncomfortably.
Come back, it's really funny. Everybody in my school is doing it. You see, when you pull my finger, I make a noise like I farted.
Sure, it's a boring show, but I don't think it deserves to be treated like this, and I can't help but feel bad for the original creators that probably worked hard on the show, even if they didn't set out to make a masterpiece. As a bit of a supplemental example of what I'm trying to get at here, let's talk about Ikitosen for a bit. Ikitosen is a manga about high school martial artists that happen to be the reincarnation of heroes from the Three Kingdoms era, such as Lu Bu, Guan Yu, Sun Ce, and so forth. It's a pretty trashy story that's more about fan service than fighting, and even that is just an excuse to show some big-breasted girls in various states of undress. The Ikitosen manga eventually came to America with the salacious title of Battle Vixens. Its localization was handled by Tokyopop, which was one of the more respectable localization companies bringing manga over in the late 90s and early 2000s. That's why I was so surprised to see the work they'd done for the translation of Ikitosen. Tokyopop's translation of Ikitosen is possibly some of the meanest translation work I've ever seen. Every line is made to be as mean-spirited and gross as possible, and openly disregards whether or not the character speaking would even say the lines written on the page. Ikitosen being the type of story it is, some vulgarity is expected, but the dialogue varies between, I can see this being a grosser version of what was actually said, and, okay, there's no way that this was in the original script. I'm not here to defend Ikitosen, by the way. It's trashy, unrelentingly so, and there's no hidden gem here. It's fan service for fan service's sake, and even its fans have to admit that. However, even trash deserves to be experienced as it is, and unlike Ghost Stories, Tokyopop's translation is so heinous that it doesn't even have the grace of being occasionally funny. It is disgustingly vulgar to the point that it makes an already trashy read an even worse experience. And when it comes down to it, that's sort of my problem with the Ghost Stories dub. I don't think it's bad to enjoy it, and I don't think that ADV Films were wrong to dub the show the way they did. Anyone who wants to watch the show in its original form can always watch the original Japanese. It is available. And yet, I can't help but look at the Ghost Stories dub as a sort of slap in the face to both actual fans of the work and the people who actually put together the original series. If it was a fan project or a little joke thing on the internet, I would feel less bad about it, but because it was an official work done by an official company, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Maybe I'm the only one that's even thinking about this that seriously, but it's always going to be something that's in the back of my mind whenever I hear about the Ghost Stories dub. Thanks for watching, and also for all of the support over the last few weeks. I've actually been able to break 200 subscribers, and it's all thanks to you guys checking out my videos. Subscribe if you want to catch what I've got coming up next, and I'll see you next time.